Hi, my name is Alyssa Vandegrift, and today we're going to be talking about my capstone project, Serenity House Women's Shelter. We're going to start off a little bit about my story of why I chose this capstone. And this really starts back when I was 15 years old, when I went down to Vienna, Virginia to help relocate a women's shelter. And I really just got passionate about helping people within their daily lives. And I didn't know what that looked like until I found industrial design in the ICC, and they've really grown me and helped me with my passion. So yeah, let's get into it. So this presentation, we're going to start off with my discover phase, which I did a lot of researching and interviews just to get to know the problem more. Then going into the define phase, making a project brief, getting to know users more, and creating guidelines. And then I went into a develop phase where I started making my site plan, going into ideation and figuring out what the floor plan could look like, and then into my deliverables where we will end this presentation. So first, let's jump into the discover phase. And I'm going to start out with telling you guys why I chose to focus on women. So females represent almost 40% of the nationwide homeless population. And you might be asking, why did you focus on the minority instead of the majority? Well, let me put this 40% into numbers. 40% equals 232,186 documented homeless women in the United States. And I want you to remember the word documented here for a second. Women often rely on situations of hidden homelessness, staying with family members or friends, and some seeking alliances with men, as well as alternatives alternatives into entering into or remaining into a homeless service. So there's a hidden and invisible side of women homelessness that's hard to quantify. So it makes that 200,000 sum of documented women much higher, obviously, throughout this research we just found. So then I started asking myself three important questions. Why do women become homeless? Why do they avoid shelters? And what are their core needs? So let's dive into the first one. Why do women become homeless? They become homeless for lots of reasons. One could be because of domestic violence, mental and health issues, loss of employment, limited housing options, as well as being in drug and alcohol, having addictions, and lastly, traumatic experiences like human trafficking. So the number of women without a permanent home may be higher because of their tendency to avoid shelters. So why do they avoid shelters? Well, there's over 11,000 shelters in the United States, and the majority of them are co-ed. So could co-ed be an issue? Well, co-ed shelters don't always offer the services that the women might need. And for any abused woman, any man, no matter how innocent he is, they could be a threat and trigger her past emotions, which then makes it really hard for her to recover from her past effectively. But there's other reasons why women avoid shelters, and one of them could be she has low self-worth, doesn't think that she's worth that time and help. Another reason is they may be stuck in trauma bonding, where they believe that their attacker or abuser actually loves them, but in reality, they just see them as a mere object. And then lastly, because of money. When you enter into a shelter, a lot of times, if they have a job, they'll have to quit it just so that they can have that full-time support and the help that they need. So they're physically relying on the shelter to keep them well. So my last question was, what are their core needs? Well, homeless women need a place where they can seek refuge first and foremost, but they also need accountability. With 38% abusing alcohol and 26% abusing drugs, this can lead into a lot of mental health issues, as well as self-abuse and self-harm. Another one is they need protection and comfort. Domestic violence is the leading cause for homelessness for the female population, which it means between 20 to 50% of homeless women and their children are forced to run away from a violent home. And lastly, they need help with their kids. Among all homeless women, 60% have children under the age of 18. So why did I choose a shelter? Well, let's get into that. Mainly for new opportunities. New shelters offer so many a wide variety of opportunities for women and their children. And for the women, it could be job placements, it could be education and training, healthcare, counseling, and even case management. And with all of this together, it offers them a new start at life. For the kiddos, it offers them a chance to be off the streets, a chance to be kids, education, and as well as healthcare for when they are sick. And lastly, it offers them a temporary home. When they have nowhere to go, they need somewhere that they can seek that shelter and community. And they also need that community, as well as that physical protection that the shelter would be. With all that, I created a mind map and put all of my information together. But with one area I want to point out, and that is the when. As you can see, there's nothing really branching off of it. And this is because homelessness is a very wicked problem, which means there's not really a specific solution that will help this cause. But I believe that if we all got informed, learned about it, what causes it, and really just got involved, we could help make this wicked problem not so wicked. So I really encourage you to get involved in a shelter, in your local shelter. So the issue I want to tackle here is women hidden homelessness. So now let's move into the define phase and what this would look like. So I made a project brief stating how might we encourage homeless women of all backgrounds to believe that they are priceless and deserve a new start in life, as well as feeling safe and comfortable in a shelter. So let's meet Gabrielle Diaz. Gabrielle is 24 years old and she currently works as a waitress. But one thing you might not know about Gabrielle is that she has a very abusive boyfriend and doesn't allow her to go anywhere without his permission except for work and home. So she needs mental health counseling, as well as a new place to live until she gets her own place, and a community and an advocate. Her motivations being that she wants to get away from her abusive boyfriend and wants to start her own life, making her own decisions. Next, meet Marie and Olivia. Marie is 32 years old and is currently unemployed and was just recently divorced. But something you might know about Marie is that because she was just recently unemployed, she hasn't been able to pay rent for the past 3 months. And because of that, her landlord kicked them out. And now Marie and Olivia are homeless and have nowhere to go. So they need a home. She needs help finding a job. She needs free daycare and as well as a consistent community and support. And her motivations behind all this is she wants to better the life of her daughter and wants to get back up on her feet soon. And lastly, this is Kathleen Smith. She's 57 years old and she's currently one of Serenity House's newest counselors. She needs a safe place where she can connect with her patients. She needs co-counselors to help with the demand, as well as a private office. Her motivations being she wants to help mend those emotional damage that these women might be going through, and she wants to be an advocate for them and in their needs. So now we met the problem and we met our personas. Let's jump into some guidelines. So we need to meet the needs of all who interact with the shelter, allow for individual privacy, reflection, expression, as well as collective activities. Make the atmosphere calming, inviting, and judgment-free. Design for size and continuum. Provide a space where women can recover effectively. Location is convenient and close to services that might be needed by the women. Separated family dorms from individual dorms. Being trauma-free. Provide safety and security, as well as design for all walks of life. So with one of my design guidelines talking about a location, I chose South London. It is one of Columbus's lower income neighborhoods. The population is roughly 24,000, with the number of households being at 8,700. With medium home values just under 50,000, we have households only making a median of $21,602 a year. So the services that the shelter will need to provide to serve the women properly would be meals 3 times a day, as well as childcare, a community, mental health counseling, education, art therapy, as well as art classes, employment services, healthcare, drug and alcohol treatment, and case management. And then I looked into what spaces were needed to provide for these services. And we do need living quarters, laundry rooms, storage, counseling centers, a cafeteria and kitchen, children's center, as well as a separated entry lobby, an elevator. We needed classrooms and even a library. But then I went even further to think, what are extra spaces that would set this shelter apart from other ones, and help for making women want to come to the shelter when they're in need. So those spaces are living space, an outdoor space, an art room, an in-house donation center, health clinic, garage, private rooms, community rooms, a playground, and even a designated visitor area. So with all this now being said, I needed to come up with a concept that would fit the overall feel of Serenity House. And what better word than serenity itself, meaning calming, relaxing, and peaceful. And with that, I made a mood board that really fit this whole vibe that I was trying to go for. So now we're down to the define phase. Let's move into the develop phase. So in here, I needed to find a plot of land that would fit for my design guideline being designed for size and continuum. And I found this massive plot of land that I thought would fit perfectly for this women's shelter. It sits right off of Joyce Avenue and East 17th, which are pretty busy roads. So that means that they have bus transport, as well as they're pretty easy with sidewalks to walk to wherever the women might want to go if they're not able to catch a ride in the shelter van. Then I needed to go into making bubble diagrams, which is my ideation process. And I spent a lot of time in this process, but I finally came up with this final floor plan, which is my first floor. And I wanted to point out a specific circulation, and this is the visitor circulation. Now the visitor only had access to the living room, the lobbies, and restrooms, but for women and the employees, I wanted them to have about just as equal access as possible, making this shelter feel like home where you have access to all your rooms in your house. I wanted the women to make sure that they felt the same. And on the second floor, this is where families will be living. So we'll take a look at inside that floor plan. And in this, they have a Jack and Jill bathroom. For if a mom has more than one kid, she can have access to her kids through the bathroom. Instead of going outside and into the room from the hall, she can just have that more natural access through the bathroom to her children. And up on the third floor, this is where individuals will be staying. And in this room, they have their own size of the room to have that more privacy, but also a separated bathroom from the sink and closet. And after making my floor plan, I need to start thinking about materials and colors and finishes I wanted to have this building reflect. And so I made for an exterior as well as for my interior. And for both, I decided to go with the farmhouse style. And lastly, to finish up my development phase, I created a master plan to see what the building would look like in relation to the plot of land I chose. And this is what I came up with. So now let's get into my last set of deliverables. And first we'll start off with my section views. You'll see the north and the east section view, and then into my elevations, which is the north side of the building, as well as the south side. And then the east and the west. So let's get into just taking a tour, shall we? So welcome to Serenity House. It has the capacity to serve 64 women, and when they come, they will be dropped off at the front entrance, as you see a van is doing currently right now. And on the east side, we have a separated donation center entrance, as well as the supply drop-off being right next to it. And in the backyard, we have a playground for the kids, as well as a designated outdoor space for all to enjoy. And I added window pergolas to the building to add more dimension as well as extra shading. And to keep with the farmhouse feel, I added board and batten siding. And as well, the east side has the 2-car garage for the van to have, or for the shelter to hold their vans. And it sits also right next to that donation center entrance. And on the back side of the shelter, I added 3 extensions to give more definition to the building and also adds more curb appeal to it. And in that backyard, we talked about needing to have a playground. So this is the playground, but I wanted to make sure the kids stayed in a designated area. So I added more of a natural fence so they don't feel like they're caged in. And that separation continues to the outdoor living space where still they're separated, but you can still see over them to see your kid playing around. And this is the view of the outdoor space through the door from the living room. And as you can see, we have 2 living spaces out here, one out in the sun, as well as one underneath a pergola for extra shading. And right beside that, we have the extension of the cafeteria with outdoor dining. And this is the front entrance where they'll get dropped off. So let's take a tour of the inside. So first we're going to go through the front entry where any guests will come and they'll get checked in and greeted by the receptionist sitting right at the desk. They'll get checked in and then they'll be asked to wait until the respective person is ready to visit. Once they're ready, the receptionist will check or scan them into the door and they can go and visit and have a lot of fun. Then we'll go to the living room, and in here, this is where visitors will be interacting. And this is also meant for community with 3 different seating areas. A lot of people could come down here and have fun with 2 fireplace areas to sit at to keep cozy, as well as having a more common living room feel on the other side with a TV, couch, and a couple extra chairs. And here's a closer look up at the fireplace area. This is probably one of my favorite places to just sit and get cozy and just have a lot of fun. And then we'll go just right beside the living room is the children's center, where we'll be looking at one of the daycare as well as the classrooms and game room. So this is the daycare with a toy wall for lots of fun for the kiddos, as well as circle time where they'll be reading stories, and then also craft tables, which could also be used as snack tables for that time of day. And then for the younger kids, for infants, they have 3 cribs for nap time, as well as a changing table in the back. And this is a view of the elementary classroom. Here's where kids will come get tutored after class, after coming home from school, or even just working on homework with other kids around, maybe getting still more of that school environment for them. And the kids will know that this is the game room because of the giant G board game shelf. And in this room, we have a lot of tabletop games as well as a basketball hoop for them to shoot some hoops, and a designated sitting area for them to maybe play some of those board games. But this space is really meant for community, for the kids to build their own community with each other, maybe some additional friendships, and just having fun and have a designated space for themselves. And now we'll go back down the hall past the living room. We'll be going into the health clinic, which sits right off the living room. And we'll be looking at the waiting room as well as an office and an exam room. And in this health clinic waiting room, you can see that there is an exit or an entrance from the front of the building. And this is for emergency purposes only. But when women come in, they can first stop is the check-in window. Well, they will either make their appointment or say that, hey, I'm here for my appointment as well. And one of the doctor's office acts as a multi-purpose room, as an office, but also as the receptionist office as well to check in and make appointments. In the exam room, it is fully equipped with anything that the doctor might need to treat a patient as well. Across from the health clinic is the counseling center, where we'll take a look at one of the counseling offices as well as a private meeting room. And in this counseling office, I wanted to make sure we had enough space that makes it cozy for the client to sit in, to just get comfortable, as well as the counselor. So she has that area where she can counsel, as well as her own desk and seating area to do her own work. And in a private meeting room, these spaces are really meant for intentional, private conversations between a woman to a woman. Not really a counselor comes in this room. It's more for women who are at a shelter, can just share experiences and know that they have that community and another person has been through something just like them, and they can share those experiences. And past the counseling center is the library and art room, and we'll take a look at the library first. And this room is meant for learning, where they can grab a book off the shelf if they wanted to read something, but as well as searching the web for jobs and learning about new things via the internet. And right beside that is the art room, which holds 8 women at a time, and they can express themselves through art, and they can take art classes, which will be held every day. But this can also be used as the art therapy room when art classes are not going on. And by far the biggest room in the shelter is the cafeteria, needing to seat 72 people, and has a buffet style area in the corner. This space is not just meant for the women and the children, but also for the women who are working here at the shelter. And right across the hall from that is the donation center, where anybody who is donating clothes, food, or whatever, they will enter through the separated entryway and then hand off their donation to the receptionist. That receptionist will then come behind the wall to the bins that are sitting on the shelves here and organize them that way for quick access. After the day is done, she'll take these bins, and in the door right next to the shelf is the supply room. She'll take those bins from the shelf into the supply room for locked storage. Now let's travel up to the second floor, where we'll see what a family room could look like. In this family room could be Maria and Olivia's. In this room, I wanted it to be designed for growing. These kids will probably be growing. Kids grow. So we want to make sure it's big enough for that, as well as the size of a family could be bigger. And like we said before, there is a Jack and Jill bathroom connecting it to another room, like we said before, for if a mom has more children. And if she has an infant, she can ask for a bassinet to put her infant in, as you can see this mother did ask for. And down the hall from that is a community room, where both second and third floors both have community rooms for the women who are living on those 2 separated floors. And in here, this is obviously meant for community, hence the name community room, where women can come as more of a group setting and just have conversation and getting to know each other. But also AA meetings could be held in here as well. And on the 3rd floor, we will look at one of the individual units for what maybe Gabrielle would be using. And as you can see, you'll enter in and you'll enter into a small hallway with 2 doors with that separated bathroom and separated sink and closet. Entering into the living space now, you can see that they have identical things, but they're separated for them to create them as their own. And they have a chance to decorate their room, their side of the room, to make it feel like more like home for them and style it the way that they want. So this is the way that one of our guests chose to decorate. Thank you so much for visiting, and I want to recap this presentation real fast. So we went over my Discover phase, where I shared my research process as well as interviews in my mind map. The Define phase, I went over my project brief, personas, guidelines, even my concept with mood board. In my Develop phase, we went over the site plan as well as bubble diagrams and floor plans in CMF. And to finish that up was my master plan. In my Deliver phase, I got to take you on a tour of the Serenity house from the interior and the exterior. Hope you guys enjoyed, and thank you so much for visiting.